how is the financing being planned?
The financing for the High Line or for everything?
The whole project. I mean,
For the High Line project or for all of the city? So the question is how's the financing for? Well, you know what zoning does is actually allow development as of right. We have a very small budget, but what you want to do through zoning is actually create a atmosphere where people can build tall in the right places, and people aren't allowed to build in the wrong places. So zoning is only expensive in the sense we have to do environmental review, but its returns, economic returns, are multifold through the development that we can create. In terms of financing for the High Line, we are actively fundraising, and anybody who wants to give to it is welcome to do it. Yes.
May I ask what's your thoughts on the Columbia University expansion? Does it fit in with your thinking, and how would you like to direct it, since a lot of us here are graduates of that university?
Ah, yes, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Well, the Columbia expansion plan was very, very important for the city. It was expanding into a part of West Harlem, which was a manufacturing zone, but really nothing was happening there that was industrially significant at all. It was a very ambitious plan for over 7 new full-block laboratory buildings, which, frankly, the Planning Commission thought was too much. And we limited them to 5 laboratory buildings. It's very important to the city. It's a great employer. But it was also important that Columbia's plan was not going to look like, like New York Hospital. And so it needed to be more of a mix of uses. It needed to be more residential use, more commercial use, and they weren't paying attention to the ground plane. So there needed to be more of a retail and residential presence in addition to the laboratories. So I think the Planning Commission very finely tuned and brought down some of the scale so it fits better into the fabric of Upper Manhattan and felt more accessible to the people of Upper Manhattan, so that they felt it was more a part of the neighborhood. So it's a balance, very big, huge job generator for the city, very important for the city's economic health, the expansion of Columbia University, but it had to pay attention to the character and the qualities of the neighborhood it was moving into.
If
yes.
You could please use the microphone.
Around the UN, there's talk of having a bikeway, walkway that would go like from the lower 40s all the way up, say, to Kingsborough Bridge. And yes. I wonder whether that's feasible.
It is not feasible to have a bikeway outboard of the UN. It has to come inboard, unless you were to build an esplanade that floated on the water. There's a riptide there, so it is indeed very, very difficult. So it's one of those things that the UN planners and our great doer in the city, Robert Moses, did some good things, but he did some very bad things as well. The car took precedence, but it's a good question.
Hi, Amanda. My name is Catherine Grace Jordan. I'm a resident of Palm Beach and Manhattan's Upper East Side. My first question is, I didn't hear you mention anything about the Upper East Side. Is there anything going on with that? And secondly, what about the issue of security for those of us who did live through 9/11? Is that a factor in some of these development projects?
It certainly is, especially in Lower Manhattan. So, and it's an excellent question, because, we like glass because it feels open. We have an open society. We don't want buildings that are like bunkers, but at the same time, you have to make sure that they are safe. So a very difficult design challenge is working with the police department and the architects to have the kind of street security and bollards that don't make you look that you're like in an armed camp, because that has the negative effect of disincentivizing investment in the city if it looks like an armed camp. And I have to say that's what I think about the what they call the Freedom Tower, is that it's covered in concrete, which also has a blast problem, but I don't know who will really, frankly, want to work in that building. So it's something that we wrestle with all the time, and looking at innovative ways to have a secure perimeter, but don't have it look like an armed camp. So there's sidewalks that can collapse, so that if a truck comes too close, it will deaden the blast. But we're also struggling with it with Madison Square Garden and Penn Station, where you want to have a light, airy place, but you don't want it vulnerable to attack. So it's an excellent question. In the Upper East Side, as I mentioned, that other administrations have focused on Manhattan, and the Upper East Side has been rezoned and zoned and zoned, and some of it's already about as high density as it possibly can get. And I think the focus on the Upper East Side has to be on preservation and not on growth, because it has a unique character that really shouldn't handle the growth. You really have to keep that fine texture.
Okay, thank
Thanks. Yes, Audrey.
Traditionally, Amanda, is rezoning or this kind of planning done regionally by only regional people, or is someone like you available to come to us there at Palm Beach and help us with some of the problems that we have, like the Royal Poinciana and some of that?
Well, it's such a nice question to ask. That's if we're available to talk to other cities. And in fact, I belong to a group called the Urban Age Group, and the group of us actually does go around to other cities. And we actually find that we all have the same issues. We have sustainability issues, we have flooding issues, we have preservation issues, and the network of planners around the country is very important, because or even around the world, that we share our problems and how we are actually addressing certain solutions, and then I'm sure that New York could learn from Palm Beach as well. So it's a very important and that's why I actually love to come and speak, because I always learn something from another city and vice versa. So I would love to encourage that.
It's something you could recommend to whoever we have to the town council.
I would always love to come back to Palm Beach, yes.
With these new buildings going up,
Yes.
is there a need to provide for parking, and how do you do it?
Such a good question. Parking, it's a dilemma. It's in the outer boroughs and the other boroughs. They feel there's never enough parking in a building, because a lot of these streets are very small. A lot of the people who live in the other boroughs need their cars to get to work, etc., if they're not near mass transit, and they don't want new buildings to generate on-the-street parking, so they want more parking. So we've really bifurcated this into a Manhattan parking situation and an other borough parking situation. I think, and we're coming around to this, that there should be much less parking provided in Manhattan, even though the developers will say, oh, they need it to sell apartments, because especially public parking. Public parking has a lot of in and out. That creates a tremendous traffic problem. You have to balance it because the stores need it, but where Lower Manhattan, any applications for public parking garages, I am strongly discouraging. I don't think we should discourage cars in Lower Manhattan. I think my commissioners would agree with me. There has to be a balance to provide some parking, but in Manhattan, I think we are overall discouraging it and not require. And then the balance in the outer boroughs, again, it kills affordability because it's very expensive to build. So it's a balance between the community saying we need more. For instance, I'm rezoning all the Rockaways. They say they will not pass this rezoning unless they require 100% parking. So we're talking about it, but it's a real lightning rod. So it's a very good question, and I don't have the answer.
I'm a former resident of a beautiful New York neighborhood, Manhattan Beach, and
yes.
but I found a wonderful new place to live and
Yes,
city
you did.
place here. I hope you get a chance to really go across the bridge and find that this mixed-use place is exciting and walkable. You can walk to the Kravis, you can walk to the Norton, and to find out about the plan for the West